Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Today y Mañana. I'm Alex. This is Nickolas joining me today. We're very excited to have you joining us this morning. It is definitely, as I always say, a morning for a good café con leche. There's always a good morning for that, especially when it's rainy and kind of chilly. So be sure to get yourself into your warm place, get your cup of coffee, settle down, and enjoy the show today. We have a great show lined up for you. We're going to be joined shortly by Dr. Caroline Worra. She's the artistic director at Charlottesville Opera, as well as Dr. Leanne, Clement, the general director of Charlottesville Opera, and then followed up later on the show by Sam Kessler, the owner of the Philosopher Stone Pizza. Just thanks for everyone for tuning in today. We're really excited to be on the I Love CVille Network set, always presented by Emergent Financial Services. And we're always partnering with our friends at Vitae Spirits. We had a great time this past weekend at Vitae. Took our uncle who was visiting town to taste some of the amazing spirits that Ian creates there.
Yeah, the rums and
all the different ones. We had the little sampler there, and just a great experience. And TJ was just fantastic. Just like it's an educational experience as well as a tasting experience because he tells you so much about everything. We were sitting there saying, this is how this one is made. This was the genesis of this one. Here's what Ian was thinking when he put it together.
Well, because we love to learn, and that's one of those things that like you don't expect you're going to go to a bar and learn, and you do. You just learn so much because you're with somebody who is involved in the whole process and in the cocktail creation, and from start to finish, it's just like, oh, wow, so much knowledge. You just walk out
knowledgeable.
Like,
so it was a great experience there. So really,
a lot of fun.
Would recommend it. And of course, we're always partnering with Aqua hand car wash with our friends at the Gym CVille, who will be on next week with us, as well as our friend Miguel Jit from Cider Craddock Insurance, Castle Hill Cider, at GBS Financial Services, and of course we're always partnering with Forward Adelante, the premier Latino networking group here in Charlottesville, Virginia. So a great show lined up for you all this morning. I think it's going to be fantastic. And I don't know about you, Nick, but I'm ready to go right to it.
I was already ready.
Go ahead. You were ready before we even started. And Nick was like,
I was ready. I was hoping we'd start right off the bat. I was like, we showed up at 10 o'clock and we're like, let's go.
Let's just go. All right, let's start. Let's bring on, we're really excited to welcome to the show Dr. Caroline Worra, the artistic director, and Dr. Leanne Clement, the general director of Charlottesville Opera. Caroline, Leanne, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having us.
Good morning, doctors.
Good morning.
It's a pleasure. So, I mean, for those who don't know Charlottesville Opera, or don't know about yourselves, tell us a little bit about yourselves and how you came to be connected with Charlottesville Opera.
Well, sure. I guess I will start. So I'm really very new to Charlottesville Opera, although not new to Virginia or the area. I grew up in Louisa County, which of course is very close by, but I've spent the last almost 20 years in Louisiana. I went there to get my degrees in voice, and I've been running an opera company there, but recently I saw this position come open. I've followed this company all of my life because it's so close to my home, and so when the position came open, I applied and was thrilled when I was chosen as general director.
That's fantastic. How about yourself, Caroline?
Well, I'm an opera singer, and so I've been getting to sing a lot of different opera all over the place. And last summer was actually my first summer coming here. Again, as an opera singer, you always have heard about Charlottesville Opera. It has a wonderful reputation. So when I was asked to come last summer to work with the Emerging Artist Program, I was completely honored, and so that was my first time in town here. And since then, now my role has grown into artistic director, which is really exciting. So I'm very excited to be working with Leanne to create such an exciting season for this coming summer.
That's fantastic. Those shout out, we got some people watching the show today. Of course, we got Good Times Only watching the show. Thanks for sharing today. We got Elizabeth Miller watching the show today. Thank you for watching today. So, I mean, I know Nick mentioned one of them, and which in the Merry Widow, but I'm excited to know what can people look forward to this season at Charlottesville Opera. What are you both excited about?
Well, I'm excited about both of the shows, but definitely The Sound of Music because it's so uplifting. It's so, just heartwarming. It's a story everybody knows and recognizes, and we are so excited. We have 12 children who are going to be featured in this production, local children. We had these incredible auditions where Caroline had them all marching around and being the little Von Trapps. It was wonderful. But we also have this incredible community chorus. I mean, I was blown away to come here and hear the voices and the talent that's here in Charlottesville. So we'll be featuring a lot of community singers and in The Sound of Music. And so that's what I'm super excited about. I mean, the Merry Widow is amazing too. I'm going to let Caroline talk about that because she's definitely the expert on the Merry Widow.
Well, and I suppose the reason that I'm very excited about the Merry Widow is that I get to be the Merry Widow.
It's a good reason to be excited.
That's right. And this is a role that I've done. I think this will be my 7th time doing this role, and I absolutely love this show for the very reasons that you're saying. There's so many tunes that people will walk away humming. It's a love story. It's funny. It's kind of got a lot of everything for those that have never been to an opera. I think they'll love to see it as a first opera, but also for people that love opera. I mean, it's just one of those. The Merry Widow Waltz is da 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 da, right?
Oh,
and so right there,
you hear
there's just
them
this
all the
little
time
tune.
and you don't realize what it's from.
Right.
Yes, exactly. So that's a famous tune, and there's dancing, and it'll be a fun evening for
It's
everyone.
extremely approachable. That was the
Yes.
first thing that struck me as soon as I had heard it right off the bat. It's like, this is, it's something that you can get into right away and then will stick with you. Like, the audience can, and I was like, I wonder if that's part of the, so was part of the decision because of the fact that there's going to be a lot of new opera goers, or like we're trying to appeal to more people?
That's a big part of it. And it's also coming back after the pandemic. Every opera company has been either outside or online. And finally, we're back in the theater, which we're so thrilled to be back at the Paramount. It's such a lovely place. The people there are wonderful to work with. I mean, just amazing. And so, but we knew that the community would need something that was uplifting and positive. Both of these productions are in English. And so you have that, people, the accessibility is improved there. But we also have super titles. So, whatever it is, you're going to see the words on the screen, whether it's in German or French or Italian. We have it up on the screen, so you know what's being said.
Which is very
That's
helpful.
very
Yes,
helpful.
absolutely.
So wait, are you saying that for the Merry Widow, it's going to be performed in English?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
wow. Okay, I didn't realize that at first.
Yes, and I think it's so fun to do it in English. It's in German, but I've only done it in English.
Oh,
so
interesting.
yes.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah, it's kind of the tradition to actually, in the U.S., of course,
Right.
to
change it into English?
To change
Oh,
that particular one into English, yeah. So.
Oh, that's interesting, especially I think because this is more of a comedic,
Yes.
lighthearted opera. I think those are always fun to try to, because in English you can get the jokes a little more and laugh in real time as opposed to
Yes.
kind of reading it in a delayed laugh.
Exactly.
Right.
And
therefore-
everybody in the cast has very good diction. So the hope is that we can reach right to the audience and say these things. But, sometimes when there's lots of singing going on all at the same time with the orchestra and everything, it's nice to know that you can always look up also, just get a little bit more of the plot points.
Yeah, awesome.
That's fantastic. So I'm curious because I know you mentioned that you started off, Caroline, as emerging artist program. I'm curious, tell us a little bit about that program. I'm curious how that works and what other programs there are at the opera.
Yes, so this is a huge feather in the cap of this community to have 16 singers come to town that there are across the country, across the world really, there are programs. Sometimes they're called young artist programs. They have different titles, but we chose emerging artists because these singers are people that have probably already finished their degrees, maybe even a master's degree, have already been on the stage for many different operas. And so they're kind of the next generation that's looking for this opportunity to become the next opera stars, the next household names that people would know. And so I think it's really important that we are training them in some of these smaller roles, and then each year they come back and maybe get a little bit larger role. So there are people that are returning this summer that were here last summer that now get to be featured in a larger role. And I think that's fun for them and fun for our community to say, oh, I remember them. And
I remember seeing them last year and now they're back, but now they're in this role instead.
And this program has been going on at Charlottesville Opera as long as it's been around, so 45 years. And it has trained singers like Eric Owens, who is a major Metropolitan Opera superstar. I mean, he will say, and if you go to the Met HD, at the Paramount, he's there saying, this is where I got my start. This is where I had my first paying gig, was at Charlottesville Opera. It was then
I did not
Ashlon.
know that Eric Owens.
Yes, isn't that amazing?
We probably weren't living here at the time.
Isn't he Alberic?
Yeah, he played
Yes,
Alberic
in the
Ring
Rings.
Cycle,
Yes, he did.
He was fantastic.
He was fantastic.
Yeah.
And he was recently Porgy and Bess, and currently Otello. He's in Otello, King. There you go. I'm not going to remember his name. Anyway, but he's just recently Otello at the Met. So
Wow.
yeah.
That's amazing to hear about those stars. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Which really is, I think, in many ways, one of the beauties of Charlottesville Opera is yes, we're a small town. It's not but it has almost an outsized influence, I would say. Yeah. Like, it's amazing what is accomplished in Charlottesville Opera and the quality of the opera that I think is on par with a lot of the places you would traditionally associate with opera.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the thing that's great about opera is that just to put on an opera, it's already a collaboration with everybody in town. Mm-hmm. And so the fact that we also have a little collaboration with the ballet, so that there are ballet, our choreographers from the Charlottesville Ballet, there are symphony players from the Charlottesville Symphony, we have singers from the Oratorio Society, the UVA singers. I mean, there's so many different groups that have come together just to put on this particular summer.
It's beautiful. I mean, we were looking at just when the Mary Mill Farms the other day, and it was like how many different societies that, and my father was like, I didn't know we had an oratorio society. I was like, yeah, well, that's why it's good to have the show also to get these words out. Like, there is an opera, there's a symphony, there's an oratorio society, there's all these different elements of like what you'd expect from a larger city, but in a small town like Charlottesville.
It really is one of the finest summer festivals, I think, in the country. I mean, of course, I'm biased because it's close to home and now it's my job. But I mean, truly, the star power that comes in here for the summer, and Charlottesville is a big part of that. The community draws in these artists. Caroline and I can't go to a major artist and say, hey, come to the middle of nowhere and it's not really pretty and the food's not great and all of that. But we can say, come to Charlottesville. It's beautiful. The community is amazing with these wonderful, businesses here, places to eat. It's really, it's absolutely a draw to these artists to be a part of this program. So.
And beyond the emerging artists that are coming in, then we also hire professionals from all across the country as well. Right. So these are big names.
Case in point, right?
Right. Me?
Me? Oh, Caroline. She's so humble.
But so it's really a great opportunity for our community here to see these world-class people from the stages, but also then for the emerging artists to emulate them and say, that's how you do this. I want to learn from that particular singer that's my particular voice type or something,
Well, I mean, it's always great when you can have a collaboration between veterans and upcoming stars, because then it becomes, one is bringing in all the energy of like being new and get like the excitement, and the other one's like all the experience of what to expect and how to conduct yourself, and like how, like, it's a beautiful thing to watch. I've always enjoyed the performances that the Charlottesville Opera has put on.
That's a really great observation. I mean, that's definitely something I experience watching and producing opera, but that's absolutely, and you're right, everybody kind of benefits. I mean, we have our cast, our crew, our staff all together is almost 130 people, that's here for these 5 intensive weeks, and many of them are local, many of them are coming in from out of town. It's wonderful.
That's fantastic. Yeah, Xavier's watching the show today. He says the energy of your desk is contagious and reminds us how important music is to life.
Oh, yes. That's very nice.
Right.
And it's funny that you mentioned just the collaborative nature of it, because I'm reminded that, I always remember that the ancient Greek plays were meant to be, that we read them today as plays, but they had music, singing, dancing, and it's, in many ways, opera is the continuation of those earliest forms of music and story and literature together combined in one experience that you get to go and enjoy. And in this case, you have 2 operas here, well, 1 opera, 1 musical here, that people, I think, can really experience that with in a familiar story in The Sound of Music, because I think a lot of people, if they haven't seen the movie, they kind of know the story anyway.
Yeah.
And then to sort of draw them in and say, you know what, why don't you go see this funny, enjoyable Merry Widow as well?
Exactly.
And then go a little deeper into the realm of opera
Yes.
than what you would have done by just sticking with the Sound of Music.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I don't think people always realize, I've had a lot of people at the Mary Mills event this weekend, they said, oh, so then after you're here, does everybody go tour someplace else? And I don't know that people really realize that these are all these people coming in to create something brand new here. So this is
Right.
not a show that has come from someplace else and is going someplace else. It is being created from June 19th when everybody arrives through July 24th when everyone leaves after the last show. So this is all coming together to create something brand new, fresh, exciting right now, which I think is a really neat thought.
Yes,
Amazing.
absolutely.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
And just for here. I mean, it's not
Just
like
for here.
it's not
Right,
like you
just for
travel to
Charlottesville.
Richmond in 2 months and
Right.
you can see it there. No,
Right.
I mean, literally,
This
the
is
time
it.
to see it is here in Charlottesville in
Right.
this time frame.
Yes.
Right.
And that's it.
And I know that there are so many people in this community that go to the Paramount, they love going to the Paramount, and they watch the HD, the Met HD
Oh, yes.
broadcasts, and I think that's a really important part of getting to see opera. But it's even more important to see it live
Yes.
Right.
with your own local company and support that local company. And
Yes.
so, there's nothing like hearing an opera singer right in the same room with you.
The
You're talking about
vibrations,
the
yes,
vibrations,
the vibrations
right?
in your
Berlioz
chest. There's-
is always talking
there's
about the
nothing like
musical
it.
fluids of
Yeah.
being near. And I was like, it's so much a difference. Like, 'cause I would go to the Met live, and then I would
Right.
be like, it's fun, it's enjoyable to see, it's great to see the production on a big screen. But then you just go and you can feel the instruments and the strings and the brass, and then the all of a sudden the singer comes out, and there it is. And
Yes.
again, it's like the musical fluids. You're being washed with the music, and I'm like, that's the experience you need to have, and that's
Right.
why it's important to go to have a Charlottesville opera, because it provides opportunities to experience opera in a way it was meant to be experienced.
Right. And I think for so many people, it's getting in the door. Opera has this, this feel, this connotation that, it's not approachable. I'm not going to understand it. I don't understand the story or those kinds of things. But then if people will give it a try, what I find is that they'll walk in and maybe they're a little skeptical, but then they have that experience. They feel those vibrations, the musical fluidity. I love that. I hadn't heard that. But they experience that. And that's part of why, we also really focus on education and providing opportunities for kids to come to our orchestra dress rehearsals during the summer, and then educational opportunities throughout the year that we're taking opera singers into schools and into after school programs so that they can experience that feeling early on.
Right.
And then later in life, they're like, oh, I know what opera is. I've been there before. I can go and try this again. Or perhaps I'm going to have a career in it. Perhaps I'm a costume designer or a set painter or a singer. There's so many places to make a home there.
But because of its nature, there's, like you said, there's a lot of ways to be involved with opera. Because
Yes.
it's not just a audio aspect, there's a visual aspect to
Right.
it too, which means you costume set design,
Yes.
how it looks, how the lighting is. So there's all these talents that people can bring
Right.
that come together to put together what you see on the stage. Which is
Yeah.
just a beautiful thing to see, because it's more than it's more than just film, and it's more than just music. And
Right.
it combines the two of them together in a live performance.
Right.
Absolutely.
And there are designers and directors all over the country right now working on getting ready to come,
Wow, that's
which is
amazing.
so exciting that they're bringing all of their creative skills together and dreaming up different fun ideas of how to use the Paramount space to its best ability, and how the orchestra will fit in the pit in front, and it's really
Right.
exciting.
Yeah.
It
Just
is.
bringing the whole production to life.
Yes.
Yes, that's the magic, and you have these, of course, it's very stressful leading up to it, but then in those moments when the show is coming together in those last final days, in the rehearsals, gosh, it is the most rewarding feeling to experience and be a part of that. I mean, regardless of what part you are, whether you're a chorus member or whether you're a crew member or a dresser or a lighting designer, any of those, I feel like we all have this, we're all working together on this. We can't do it without any one of those individuals. So it's wonderful.
It's truly the group effort together.
Yeah.
Well, no, I just had a question for Carol. So now, Herbert von Karajan once said that every single time he conducted Beethoven's Fourth, it was different. It was like a
Yes.
whole new piece. So Now that you're singing The Merry Widow for, is this
seventh
the 8th
time?
time, or the 8th and 7th time?
Yeah.
How is it going to be different?
Well, you're exactly right. It is every single time, you walk into that theater, and I feel like everybody in there, we're now taking this journey together. And, certainly the notes are written, so those aren't going to change. The orchestra's going to play the same music, but these are all actors up there that are relating to each other. So when you're kind of looking at, it might start to spark up something a little bit different than last night's performance, or as we're in the rehearsal process, we start to create these connections with all of our other people on stage. And so, just like if we had this conversation again 5 minutes from now, it wouldn't be exactly the same,
No,
right?
absolutely not.
And we might pick up on other little thing. We've got to know each other just that much better. And so,
Exactly.
and same with the audience. All of a sudden you feel the energy of the audience. I've had a fun career of doing a lot of brand new operas. So I do operas that are being written right now, which is also a really neat experience, because everybody in the room has never experienced it before. Nobody there maybe has ever heard anything, and so people are a little bit on the edge of their seat. What's going to happen next? And I love that feeling, and it's a similar feeling. I think with these shows this summer, people can kind of like, oh, yay, I'm looking forward to this song, or I'm looking forward to this moment. So you do kind of sit back and relax a little bit, but at the same time, these are a whole different cast up here. These are all new people that maybe you've never seen before. So then you're like, oh, what's going to happen? Who's gonna sing the really high note, or so.
And is it going to be a good high note?
Right, yeah.
Everybody's waiting for. Are we going to make it?
You were saying that, and meanwhile, I'm thinking back to last year when I took my fiancée to La Boheme, and I was just sort of like, oh, this is my favorite part. And I realized, I have to stop saying that, because I was turning to her every 2 minutes being like, I love this song. I love this song.
Is that
I love this
great?
song. And I was like, you know what? I love the whole thing. Just watch it. It's fun.
That's great.
Right, but it is nice when you have those moments that they're my favorite part that I'm looking forward to. But
then you don't know what's coming.
Right, and so for people, like I was saying, that have never seen this opera before, it's for a first time experience. You're going to laugh. It's fun to go to the theater and laugh. Especially after what the whole world has been through.
Exactly.
This,
And operas like this can bring that. One of my favorites, I'll never forget, one of the earliest times I was introduced to opera was Don Giovanni by Mozart. So, of course, I'm laughing the whole time. So it still always holds a special place in my heart, because you feel the joy and the enthusiasm of.
I remember we rented it with our nonna and watched it together, and it was one of those things that she understood the Italian. It was the version with Bern Terfel.
Oh, wow.
And it was just like we were just having so much fun with it. And then at the end, when he just goes into hell, and we were like, Nonna, he's just. Because she looked at it and she understood Italian, but then she was like, what happened? Like,
Where'd you go?
I was like, no, he's not coming back. And she's like, Miskeen. Well, that's an interesting reaction. I was like, sayonara.
Well, there's none of that for this summer.
Right. But
Everything's happening this summer.
That's what's so
but-
enjoyable about the Lahar, the Merry Widow, is that if I'm correct, it was an operetta too, or at the time it's considered.
It is.
It's an operetta because there is spoken dialogue in it as well. So that's kind of interesting. Operas that we know of it's all sung. And so an operetta is sung and spoken. So it's kind of a nice, easy, gradual mix for people that maybe have never seen opera before. So it'll be quite similar, in a sense, to The Sound of Music. It's just a musical.
So it'll help people also, I think, follow the plot along. Probably some of the major plot points they're there in terms of they're spoken.
Yes.
And then you've got your songs
Yes.
that people can really feel into and get excited about and lighthearted.
Exactly.
And the other thing I just want to mention, because there's so many opportunities for this summer, in addition to those two shows, we also have performances throughout the community that feature our emerging artists. And so that's a great way if somebody's like, oh, I'm not so sure if I want to spend 3 hours at the opera, although Merry Widow is not quite 3 hours, we're a little under. But if you want to go, we have an event at Ix Park, and we're going to do some stuff downtown on the mall. So there's some opportunities around town that people can find on our Facebook page and just see, like, oh, where's a little opera popping up here or there.
Let me try this out and then see how I feel
Right.
about it.
Exactly.
Definitely.
Which I think is a great way to get introduced it too. Like, because all of a sudden you experience it again. You experience it live, and you're like, "Wow, I actually would love to hear this for 3 hours." You know,
Right,
And just or at
right.
least go have the theater experience. Because one of the things I think Alex and I talk about, and with my brother too, is that we love it's what Christopher Nolan in film calls the immersion, right? You lose yourself for 3 hours,
Right.
like, because
Yes.
now you're involved in the story and the music and everything that's going on. And it's like that's also the theater experience, only it's somewhat better because of the fact that you have the live music and
There's
the
a
live
physical
performance.
aspect to it, I think, that you get involved in the ebb and flow. And what I love about these two is that you'll have some people that have never seen them before, and you have some people in the audience that will have seen them, and you'll get those breaths of anticipation when everyone's like, all right, here we go,
There it
I
comes,
know
there it
what's
comes,
coming.
right.
And when you're next to them, if you've never heard it before, you're like, oh, something big is coming, because
That's right.
everybody's excited in here.
And then you have the people who sing along.
Oh,
Yeah.
really? They do?
Yes. Well, I mean, it is Sound of Music. That's kind of hard. You know, it's hard not to sing Do Re Mi. I mean,
It's true.
it is. It is.
Absolutely. I mean, so before I let you go, where can people find Charlottesville Opera? Where can people especially find some of these events that will be happening in the lead up? Where can people get in touch?
So charlottesvilleopera.org is our website. That's the best place to go. Tickets actually go on sale in exactly 2 weeks. I'm remembering that correctly.
Okay.
I should have made a note. But that'll be through the Paramount Theater, and so you'll be able to find out information on their website as well. But we'll have a direct link on charlottesvilleopera.org, and people can go from there. Also there you can see all of our emerging artists. They're pictured there. You can see our singers as well, see who's coming in. So
Fantastic.
that is the place.
And the performances for these two, for the Sound of Music is July 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. And the Merry Widow is July 22nd and 24th. So all of that's at the Paramount. So everything is in July, but there will be other pop-up performances throughout the month as well.
Right. Until now. Yep.
Yes.
And April 18th.
April
Tickets go on
18th,
sale.
yes.
charlottesvilleopera.org.
Yep.
There will be a link there. This way you can know that your ticket's straight from the Paramount. It's
Yep.
very easy. to
I'll
get
probably
tickets
be
from the
sharing
Paramount.
that. Let's be real.
Oh,
Let's
yes.
be a lie. I got mine. You get yours.
Yes, I love it. Thank you.
Don't join us, but absolutely be sure to check out charlottesvilleopera.org and check out this year's season. It's gonna be fantastic. I know it.
Yay!
That's be great.
Thank you!
I never thought of asking anyone to say thank you so much. Made my day.
We'll send you the bill later, don't worry.
Okay, it'll be in the mail.
Thank you all so much for having us on.
Yeah, Caroline, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks.
It's been
Thank
a real
you.
pleasure.
Thank you.
I
A real
appreciate
joy.
it so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So as we make the swap-a-roo here, couple shout-outs. I think thanks to Xavier for his great comment. I believe I noticed. We had Stevie Burns. Thanks for watching the show today. Fantastic to have you joining us. Lucrecia Morales, thanks for watching today.
Oh, Lucrecia. I had Lucrecia's
Siempre es un placer.
tacos al pastor yesterday.
Oh.
Yeah.
A little sombreros. Now you didn't be hungry, but fortunately,
Fortunately, we have food.
I think we have a solution for that, which is that our next fantastic guest is Sam Kessler. He is the owner of the Philosopher's Stone Pizza. Sam, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure to be here.
That's fantastic. So, first off, before we even start, I gotta ask, the Philosopher's Stone, what's the genesis of the name?
Yeah, so the original Harry Potter book, Sorcerer's Stone, is how it was released here in the United States, but originally it was known as the Philosopher's Stone. The Philosopher's Stone is an ancient alchemical stone that was supposed to be able to turn any sort of material or metals into gold. And what we're doing is we're taking raw ingredients and turning them into pizza.
Oh, I like
gold.
that. Yeah, alchemy,
Food gold,
yeah.
exactly.
Food gold. Oh, I liked
Yep.
it. So I'm curious. So how did you get into making pizza and starting the Philosopher's Stone?
Yeah, so I actually went to Virginia Tech and studied in their food science program there for 4.5 years. And once I finished up there, I wanted to kind of get into the food industry. I just wasn't sure where exactly, whether it was going to be in actual laboratories, kind of designing chemicals and things like that, or more the art form of it, which is actually making food itself. So I kind of decided I headed more towards the actual creative side of it, just because that's more me. So that's and then I just kind of all right, well, what food do I really like? And I've had pizza in every state on the East Coast. And I figured,
wow.
Yep, all the way from Maine to Florida. So I figured I obviously like pizza, so let's see what we can do with that.
Yeah.
So a wealth of pizza experience.
Exactly.
That goes
Well, there
into
you
this
go.
here.
So tell me something about, well, first of all, let's see what you got.
Let's see what we got here.
So this one here is my bacon and feta pizza.
Judy, you want me to grab a...
Judah's gonna.
Judah's
We're gonna get this. We're gonna get this live on film. There we go. Look at that.
They got a touch cold while
This is
we
what
were
we
waiting.
call
but-
improv here.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, so this one here is my bacon and feta. It's a traditional red sauce base with mozzarella, as well as feta cheese crumbles, fresh bacon, and then arugula on top after it's cooked with a balsamic glaze drizzle on top. The one here on the right is gonna be it's called Plautus Spicy Love. Plautus is a traditional philosopher, and one of his quotes is along the lines of. Spice is the stuff of life, and so that's why I went along with that name. And it is a just traditional red sauce base, mozzarella, parmesan, pepperonis, banana peppers, red pepper flake, and then a hot honey drizzle across the top.
So, I mean, because those are very interesting pizzas. I've never heard, especially of the honey drizzle on top of the spice. So how do you, I guess, take something that is, I guess you take something that's traditional, classic, everyone knows the tomato sauce pizza, and say, how do you start coming up with something different? How do you start adding?
So that's where a lot of my food science kind of comes into play. So part of food science is what chemicals are working to create certain flavors and things like that when you combine them. So I use a lot of that kind of knowledge. So like when you have acids, you want to hit it with a fat, things along those lines. So it works really well, especially like with this one here, because it's got the balsamic glaze on top. It's sweet, but it's still acidic because it is a rendered vinegar. So then I've got feta, which is just fat, basically. It's one of the fattier cheeses you can pick, along with bacon, which is also fatty to help cut some of that acid and allow them to blend together. And then, of course, arugula is also very acidic for lettuce. It's like a spicy lettuce.
It is like a spicy dream.
Exactly. So kind of they all work together. So that's kind of I use that knowledge and then all of my experience in restaurants.
Fantastic.
Oh,
Awesome. So do you want to trade?
Yeah, I was going to say.
You take the one closer to you. I'll take the one closer to me.
This is funny. This is where the taste and
Thank
things.
you.
Absolutely.
Because I mean, we have to try this
If you
live
don't
on
mind.
air. Absolutely. Let's pull this apart here, and always have to do our taste test.
My
on it.
fiance loves pizza.
This is why Nick is here today and not Xavier. He's like,
Yeah. Cheers. Thank you again.
Yeah, absolutely.
delicious.
Yeah, I can see what you mean with the bacon and the.
The fat really cuts with that, with the different acids and things on top of the pizza, and it kind of helps blend it together.
No, it's delicious, especially with the bacon. Now, so I'm curious. So for your, how many flavors do you usually come up with before you start? Because I believe it's a food truck, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
So before you go, let's say to your location, do you come up with like, do you have a new pizza every time, or is it just a matter of like
I try to rotate them around monthly. So that way, because I try to keep 4 specialty pizzas on my menu, as well as your traditionals, cheese, pepperoni, sausage, things like that. So I'll keep them on there for about a month because I'm a food truck. I'm not at the same spot all the time, so I jump around. One of the places I am at every single Sunday, Mary Mill Vineyard, it works out. I'm there 4 Sundays a month. If somebody's never had my pizza, they come 4 weeks in a row. They can try each one, and then the next month there's a new one. And so I try to rotate them out. So like my newest one, I didn't actually bring it with me, but it's a white sauce base with asparagus on top, feta, balsamic, cooked down arugula, onions,
you've
mushrooms.
sold it, Xavier, already. My father loves white sauce.
So I try to mess with them and do different things. So I think the next pizza I'm going to add to my menu is going to be a pesto base. Which I haven't done before, so I'm very excited to try that and kind of come up with flavors that work well together.
So Stephanie Guevara, our friend from CVille Picnic, said, "Go Hokies."
Yes. I know I'm in enemy territory over here.
Yeah. We're like, we're too loose, but the
We'll let
pizza's
that
good
slide.
enough that we'll keep you on this app.
That's Absolutely. No, this is fantastic.
So for your pesto, I'm just curious. This is
Yeah.
just a foodie question
Yeah,
for your
go.
pesto base, only
This
because
is
I
the
know.
danger of bringing Nick on the show.
Yeah, I know,
is
because
it's
then
a
I start
foodie
getting
question.
into the details, whether it's opera or pizza. So for your pesto base, are you going to go more of a? Because I heard that there's some that do total basil, and some that split it basil, half parsley.
Yeah, so the way I generally do it is almost entirely basil. I like the traditional flavor, and that's going to be your most true to a traditional pesto out of Italy. So I try to stick with that, but I do use very high quality basil, very high quality pine nuts, all of that kind of stuff to make sure my pesto. When you come to a food truck, you expect something that's going to wow you, and that's the goal. And so I make sure that every ingredient I put on my pizzas, everything I use, is of the highest quality I can find.
Right.
So I'm curious. So I know one of the things you talked about, especially on your website, is your wood-fired oven.
Yes.
So I'm curious, what does cooking pizza in a wood-fired oven, how does that impact cooking pizza as opposed to what you would get in like just your plain old oven? What does it add?
Yeah, so I worked at Domino's for a long time, and that's kind of where I kind of narrowed my skills down on actually how to stretch dough and things like that. One of the downsides to pizza places like that, and I'm not knocking them or anything, they're great, the price point's awesome and everything, but you're not getting the same flavors. You're not getting the smoke. You're not getting the same cook. It's very even. It's very commercialized. So when you put a pizza in Domino's, you set it on a tray, you put it in an oven, it goes through in 7 minutes, and by the time it comes out, it's done. Cooked perfectly all the way around every single time. My pizzas do not come perfectly cooked every single time. Sometimes they come a little crispier on one side than the other and things like that. But the perk of that wood-fired oven is really the tradition in it, and you're getting that smoke flavor. You're getting kind of the character. You're getting a little bit of that burn on the bottom in certain spots that's not burnt in other spots.
Right.
And that's what really adds to that pizza and makes it different than a traditional pizza you get out of a commercial style oven.
Right. Now, is the smoke flavor something you have to take into account when you're designing the pizza as well?
Yes and no. So like I had a barbecue pizza for a while actually, and it did come out a little smokier than I would have liked simply because barbecue's already smoky.
Right.
And then I'm putting it in an oven where it's incorporating some of that smoke. And it was coming out a little bit smokier than I'd personally like, so I went with a less smoky barbecue sauce on top of it to help cut that a little bit.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah.
It's one of the things I love about it is that this is one of those instances, because you're using the wood-fired oven, that the cooking method itself is adding something flavor-wise to the end result. It's not as though like all you have is the ingredients, you put them together and they melt. You actually are now putting them in a cooking method that is adding something new to it that you can't experience just by sticking a pizza in the oven at home.
Exactly. And that's what's really cool, and you see it in a lot of different styles of food cooking. You can go get a steak from 3 different steakhouses, and depending on how they prepare that steak, it might have the same ingredients, same seasoning, same cut. It could be from the same cow, but the way they prepare it's going to change entirely. Even if it is made to come out the exact same, you could sous vide it, you could cook it in an oven or grill it, and they're all going to come out differently just based on the way that you're going to cook it.
Yeah. That's amazing. So what are some of the places that you'll frequent? Because I know you mentioned Mary Mill is definitely once a month.
Yep. Oh no, we're at Mary Mill every single Sunday.
Every single Sunday.
Except
Okay.
Easter Sunday. I'm taking Easter Sunday off.
Yeah, wow.
But we are there most Sundays. Every second Saturday, we're at Keswick Vineyard as well, so I'll be there this weekend.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, and then Klockner Penoplast, one of the larger companies in the county of Orange, outside Gordonsville. I'm there every single Tuesday serving them lunch. So we move around. We have a lot of regular spots that we like to go, but I love trying new places. That's part of the fun.
Yeah.
That's the best part about a food truck. Is
Yeah.
that I'm not looking at the same wall every single day. I get to go set up and sit on top of a mountain and look at a beautiful view or vineyard or whatever it is. And
And if you're out there enjoying,
Yeah.
I mean, the beauty of it is you're out there enjoying the vineyard, the wine, the beer, if it's a brewery, the atmosphere, the views, you now have something to eat that's delicious and matches with it.
exactly.
So we'll follow with another question. So
Yeah.
again, detail oriented. So for the wood that you use for your wood fire pizza, was there a decision like I need to use hickory, I need to use this, or is there something?
Yeah, how do you pick what wood
How do you
goes in
pick,
there?
or are you just sort of like it doesn't really matter? It's wood is wood.
Well, so yeah, actually, so when you're smoking meats and things along those lines, most of the time you use something that's going to have a heavy flavor, cherry, hickory, mesquite, whatever it is, and it's going to impart a lot of that flavor into your food. when I use woods like that in a pizza oven, it overpowers everything else.
Oh,
All you taste is that smoke because it basically layers itself on the outside of the pizza. And you just taste it. You taste it in the crust and everything. So I actually use a mix of white and red oak, mostly because they do not impart a ton of flavor, but they do still have a good smoke flavor, and they're not astringent. Certain woods like, I don't know, black walnut's a good example. Black walnut's very plentiful. It's all over the place. It burns very hot, burns well. It's easy to split and everything. But it is astringent. As soon as I toss one in there, you can taste it right on the pizza.
Oh, interesting.
And so you do have to be careful about what woods you use. Really, my two favorites are maple and oak. Maple and oak have worked very well for me, and they both burn very hot and for a long time.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's maple and oak. You already have a big fan. Does Elizabeth Miller, who's watching the show today, says those pizzas look absolutely delicious. She's getting hungry just watching the show this morning. Well, that's the goal.
That's the goal. That's why I'm
goal
here.
is for Nick and I to get full.
I would say my fiance texted me and let me know that wanted me to correct that it's not just her that loves pizza. We both love pizza. So because we built our entire relationship on food.
If that wasn't apparently obvious.
Yes, that is quite obvious. But
that's the goal, right? For Nick and I to get full by eating this pizza, and everyone else who's watching to
get hungry. Yes,
that's the goal. You're just gonna have to wait until either Friday or Saturday to come see me.
There you go.
I'll be out at the Plow and Hearth stores on Friday. They're doing their big tent sale this weekend. I'll be set up all day Friday if anyone wants to come see me.
Oh, that's a great
Friday
shout
at Plow and Hearth, Sunday at Merry Mill,
Saturday at Keswick Vineyard.
Saturday at Keswick Vineyard. So you got 3 chances this weekend.
Oh yeah.
The wineries are great, and just to go, like the wineries in Charlottesville and around Charlottesville have been like increasingly, like as we experience them, been getting better and better in quality. Like you can get like really top-notch wine, and I remember joking around because during the pandemic I was teasing my dad because we were talking about Virginia wine, and I said Jose Andres was on Trevor Noah's show with a bottle of Early Mountain Rosé. And he was like giving a shout out to like the Charlottesville area. So I was like, so to have like really great quality wine in this area and then
And you
getting
compare
pizza,
with pizza.
you can just grab a pizza from a wood-fired stove.
That's
just
the
off a
original.
truck.
I mean, I know in America, pizza and Coke.
Yeah.
Is that it? In Italy,
Oh, no.
pizza and wine.
You get a liter of wine and you sit down outside and that's it.
Exactly. So that's your
Exactly.
perfect combination.
Well, and the best part is that you're getting some of the top quality wines, in my opinion, in the whole country or the world. Virginia has some of the best wines out there because they're all so different. And then all of my pizzas are hand stretched to order. So it's not like I'm cooking these pizzas ahead of time and then topping it and heating it up. They're made just like if you were to go to a traditional restaurant and order a pizza. So you're getting that very high quality food to go along with your high quality wine, and you're not cutting a corner on one of them. You're not getting a mediocre pizza and really good wine, or vice versa. You can
Exactly.
get the best of both.
You got high quality food with high quality wine.
So was the dough something that you had to work on special, or is there like a traditional idea that comes into it?
Yeah, so pizza dough is very interesting. It's very different than a lot of breads. One
Right.
thing I really love doing is baking bread. It's very cool. And the science behind it, being a food scientist, bread is huge for science. But that's one of the things. In a wood-fired pizza oven, it's hot. I'm cooking at about 700 degrees inside of there. Where traditional ovens not. Most ovens are cooking somewhere around 500 degrees. All-purpose flour burns around 550. So I have to actually use a higher protein flour. It's called double zero or double lot flour.
Caputo.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly, Caputo. And I use them for my flours when I first started. I did not know that. So I tossed a few pizzas in there, and they all kept coming out burnt. I couldn't figure out why. And eventually I narrowed it down. It was the flour
Double
itself.
zero Italian.
I was about to say,
And,
because the flavor of your dough was so good. I was like, it was reminding me a little bit, like, because we used it. It's better for pasta as well.
Yep.
But sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No.
Got all excited about the dough.
Well, that's one of the cool things about my dough specifically is a little bit different than a lot of dough that you're going to find. I actually do use olive oil and eggs in my dough. I do carry a vegan dough. I do keep vegan and gluten free on my truck, but my traditional dough is not. It does have eggs and everything, so it's very similar to a noodle. It's very similar in the way it's prepared. There's a few differences in the amounts and the way it's treated, but that's what allows it to be so chewy and nice and full. That's my favorite part.
Yeah.
I gotta have a good chewy, nice crust on there.
Yeah.
And the nice is because you've got a flavorful dough.
Yeah.
right? You get to that crust, and rather than the crust being the boring part, like
It's
there's
my
no more
favorite.
cheese on it. It's your
Yeah.
fantastic part. Because
It's
you're eating
enjoyable
such a
to-
flavorful dough.
Yeah. Oh, trust me, that's my favorite part of my pizzas. If I'm being completely honest, it's the dough. It's the crust at the end.
You get to the end. It's like
Yeah,
your
wow.
little surprise and joy.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I mean, so if people want to be able to find where you are,
Sure.
where you're going to be, what you have, where can people get in touch and find out?
The best places to look are going to be either my website stays up to date. I generally put everything up about a week or two out on my website. Instagram is also going to be very good spot to check me out. I use my stories a lot on Instagram. And then, of course, Facebook.
Yeah.
We do our best to post on Facebook as much as possible, and we do link anything, Instagram and Facebook being pretty much the same thing at this point. We link
Yeah.
them both together. So if it pops up on one, it'll pop up on the other.
Absolutely.
So it's a good place
so
to follow
Philosopher
you.
Stone Pizza, Facebook and Instagram, and then philosopherstonepizza.com.
Yep.
One S.
One S in the middle. It looked weird, but two.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep,
So we did one S
Philosopher
in the middle, so philosopher as opposed to philosophers.
Yep. Philosopherstonepizza.com, Philosopher Stone Pizza on both Facebook and Instagram. You can find all the different locations.
Science meets pizza meets delicious. I was like, that was good.
Yep. But
That's an equation right there.
Yeah, and if you need to reach out, there's always a contact button on my website as well. Anybody, we are hiring as well, so there's always a link to that as
Oh,
well on there.
awesome.
Yeah,
fantastic. Sam, this has been such a pleasure.
absolutely.
Thanks
Thank
so
you
much
guys
for
for
joining us.
having me
Thanks for
on.
bringing the pizza.
Yeah,
Of
thanks for
course.
coming. We
I
appreciate
know
it.
the
Couldn't do
whole
it.
office at Emergent Financial Services is already thrilled because they're probably sitting there saying,
They're
Oh, yeah.
all right, whatever we had for lunch
We'll
is
see
not
if
happening.
they get any. By my
Yeah, if it makes it
generosity.
over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. With Nick and I in the car, we'll see how much.
We'll be like, here, you finish this one, I'll finish this one. Wrap it up like the dude. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely, Sam. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks,
Thank
Sam.
you.
I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Absolutely.
That was good.
That's-
That was good. I love the combination of flavors, and definitely that you can taste the flavor of the dough.
Well, it's kind of interesting because it always reminds me, especially whenever we have like an artist like Sam on, that it reminds me of the time when we had Micah Lemon, and where he talked about the layers of that go into a cocktail, and he always talked about like it has to be this, and it's like it's almost like through all the arts, there's always a formula of contrast and balance and harmony, and like it's the same thing in music. Because I was reading Micah's book that he gave us a copy of his book, The Imbible, and I was reading. I'm like, this is like composing a Chopin nocturne. It's just you've got a little bit of this, a little bit of that. It goes from one to the other. It's like, and then it's a beautiful whole. And there's parts that are dissonant. There's parts that are smooth. It's just.
Leave it to Nick to
I found
compare
it.
the creation of cocktails and pizzas to composing
A
a Chopin
nocturne.
nocturne.
Well, specifically Chopin, but I guess you could, if
Specifically
it was
Chopin.
like a.
But it goes to show that like art and science are actually not opposed or mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
There, in fact, there is that balance that comes into knowing things
No, exactly.
that produces art.
And that's why I mean the composers used to listen to certain instruments, all that we got.
And Xavier Urpí says, "What?" with the question mark,
Well,
which I'm assuming is in reference to the Chopin nocturne.
well, I feel like I explained it pretty well, but
Good enough. It's good enough. This is Xavier ribbing you.
yeah,
as
I
always.
know. Well, that's because Xavier's jealous that we are here with opera and pizza.
That's what it is. He's like, I wish I was there talking about opera and eating pizza. So, I mean, of course, one more thing. I mean, if Xavier was here, if Xavier were here, we would be talking finance.
Well, we are
But
talking
Nick is
finance
here, so
in
we're
a way.
still going to talk finance.
Yes,
so you
but
didn't
we're
have
going to
fill
talk
in
about
Xavier's
something
shoes.
that's the funny thing. We were like, this is the topic that's that's for Jerry and Jerry because he's going to love it because we're going to talk about Elon Musk and his interesting news that it came out
So, I
recently.
mean, for those who don't know, as if like if you weren't following
No,
the markets, he bought a 10. It came. The news basically opened Monday morning on the disclosures. Elon Musk owns 10% of Twitter.
Yeah,
Which
9.2 or something.
and
like that.
you made an
a
interesting
$3 billion
point.
stake.
And you made an interesting point that's going to go out to some of the clients at Emergent through our quarterly commentaries about how this is part of the nature of capitalism in the markets, that
Yeah.
people will take stakes to make a change in the company that they're looking for. So you maybe want to talk a little bit about
Well,
that.
it was just interesting because I was doing some light reading before the show, and Ron Barron, who is a big Tesla investor, said that $3 billion for a man who is worth $300 billion is a tiny investment, right? Because Tesla is worth, $1 trillion, and he believes on the way to 3 to 4. So it's kind of interesting because then you're left with the question of, why would Elon Musk take $3 billion and put it in Twitter? Now he is, of course, on the board. He was invited to join the board, and I think it's interesting because we always talking about like capitalism. What is the purpose of the markets? What is what do you do with it? And it's interesting because it's a give and take. Now all of a sudden there's a very democratic aspect of it that we don't always talk about, which is the fact that now Elon Musk is like, I am buying enough that I have. He basically has a lot of skin in the game because no matter what you say, if you've got a 300 billion, and you put 3 billion, you still don't want to lose.
Nobody
$3 billion.
wants to lose $3 billion.
You don't want to lose $3 million. He's not just throwing it out. He's trying to make a change because he's looking at Twitter saying, there are things that I think my insight and experience can help or bring to the table at Twitter to make it either a better company or a more fulfilling company, whatever the case may be. And part of being invested in that means that he could also, if he doesn't do that, he could lose his investment.
His investment will go down in value.
I mean, it jumped 27% on the news.
So he's got a little cushion there.
So he's got a little cushion, but at the same time, we're talking about, like, that's a lot of money, and my assumption is he's not going to just pull it out tomorrow. Now, obviously, if he pulled it out tomorrow, it would be like, that would be an interesting way of being like, well, he just made it 27% gain, which would be understandable.
I
but
suspect
at the same
at that
time,
level of wealth, he's looking for more than a 27%.
Right, which is the thing. Is like you're looking, maybe he's not looking at that. He's looking over the next time. Because at the same time, what Twitter is for I was going to say celebrities, but in reality, Elon Musk is a very influential person. It allows him to connect directly with his consumers, right? That's one of the reasons why he's so popular is that he'll tweet, and he'll just tweet directly, and it'll be, sometimes it's nonsense, and sometimes it's great stuff, sometimes it's comedy, but there's a lot of people that find something very refreshing about being able to connect personally with someone who's got $300 billion. So it's interesting that he looked at it and said, I can make this better. It's something I do use, and it's something I like to use for this very specific reason, is that I can very succinctly make a direct connection with someone that I don't know. So I feel like it's one of those things that a lot of people are talking about, like, what's it going to change? And they're going through the free speech aspect, but I think there's also some very, very uplifting about the fact that if you feel like there's something that can be bettered, you can literally put skin in the game. It's not like that. A lot of people are taking a very negative aspect of it, but I'm like, he's putting skin in the game. He could still lose his money if he doesn't if his contribution doesn't do anything, or if it does and it's not what consumers want, he can still lose that money.
Absolutely. And from the retail investor perspective, for those of us who are watching this happen, obviously we're never going to buy a 10% stake in Tesla, but
not Tesla,
Twitter. But it goes to show you, in other words,
I might in Tesla if I could, but Twitter, no.
It shows you the unpredictable nature of individual stocks as well.
Right.
Because you were making the point in your commentary, you can sit there and you could have sat there and run through all the numbers of Twitter and said, usership is a little bit down. I think the profit margin is what I want it to be, and look through the numbers and say, maybe it's on a downward trajectory. Maybe it's not worth. It's not going to go up that much.
Yeah.
You cannot predict that an influential person buys 10% of it on a Monday and it goes up 27%. Right?
Some people claim they did because of what Elon Musk had been talking about with social media sites. But at the same time, there was a lot of talk. There was more talk about him creating his own than basically buying a 10% in an existing one, especially Twitter, which has had the most, I think, difficulty, at least in public persona in the past.
It just shows you how difficult it is, in fact, to predict all that will happen in the market, particularly when you go to a micro level. I think we understand it sometimes on a macro scale. There could be a war that I don't know about. Yeah. There could be an attack somewhere. There could be a natural disaster.
Even recession is so difficult to predict.
Even recession, but most recessions you don't know that it started until 2 years later. Like, in other words,
even the Fed,
2-3 years later,
2008, didn't realize that they had been 6 months into a recession.
By the time they realized,
and they were saying we're still good, and it's because of the fact that they're extremely difficult, because it's sort of like the undercurrent has to happen first. So if you're only allowed to, basically like at the ocean, and you're only allowed to look at the water, it would be very hard to determine how much undercurrent there is unless you step into the water. But the problem is with economies, it's very difficult to do that. It's very difficult to go in and feel the water moving.
It is, and just to show you that I think we get that on a macro scale, on a large scale, but then on the scale of individual companies, it's also the case. It's just it's very difficult to be able to guess and time and say this is when I should buy it, this is the price at which I should buy it.
Timing especially, but this is even more of a long-term trajectory. You could say over the long term, I don't see Twitter going up 27%. So even just from a matter of, even if you're not shorting the company, being like, I'm going to take this money that I would have allocated and put it somewhere else, right? The opportunity cost, because you're like, I don't see Twitter going up 27% this year, and we've had now just on this news, it went up in a matter of days.
I think it's also the value, the beauty of the diversification process.
Oh, absolutely.
In the sense of so hard to be able to know with individual companies what's going to happen. So over the course of time, you have a small piece of a lot of them. So that if this happens, it's not as though you're not in Twitter, right? But if he hadn't bought it, or if he fails to change it and it drops again, like Xavier was pointing out, Twitter had a 50% drop since 2021, since February 26th of last year, 50% drop in Twitter. Impossible to predict, impossible to know in February 2021. Yeah, Twitter's just gonna tank,
collapse,
right? Collapse, right? But you sit there and you say, okay, I don't want to be fully in Twitter. I don't want to have to be guessing when to buy Twitter, when to sell Twitter. But you have a piece of everything, so you're involved with these changes without subjecting yourself to the randomness that will happen in things that have nothing to do with Twitter's profit margin or sales, or you looked in there, but has to do with external events that will have major impacts on Twitter.
Well, it's kind of interesting because management is one of those things that a lot of investors do look at, right? When they're looking at examining something, they're like, is the management stable? For a lot of biotechnology companies, they look at, well, is there actually a doctor on their board? Things like that. So you can get a feeling for who's running the company, who's got some insight, who's a very stable position, and I think that's one of the things about Elon Musk is like what he's done with Tesla makes him somewhat of a celebrity in the sense that he does bring a lot of energy to whatever he does. So whether or not you like him or not, it's something that he's going to shake it up. And think about Twitter. I was just thinking about the past 10, 15 years. They were almost on the decline, and then they had to deal with the NFL that kind of brought them up, boosted them a little bit. The election of Donald Trump kind of boosted them a lot because Donald Trump primarily was communicating with his followers on Twitter. So like there's been moments where it's sort of like this is it, and they've just been saved by the bell. So a lot of people have been just very bearish on Twitter.
In other words, they only went up because of certain things that happened.
Yeah, like they've been saved. Again, if you're saved by the bell constantly, you're like, is this really a business that is going to last in the future and grow and explore new ways of using their social media? And it's just now we're having a situation where somebody's going to come in and say, I know what to do. Either I know what to do with this,
or I think I know
what to do with this, and I can offer some insight on how to change Twitter for the better and make it a more dynamic, user-friendly, whatever the case may be, to drive more engagement to Twitter. And so it's going to be another thing where anyone who's buying today, because now we've had the 27% boost, right, the jump.
Do you think it goes up from here?
It'll go, and that's the investor has to sit back now and be like, well, do I think it'll go up more than that because Elon Musk is on board? Like, do I think Elon Musk really knows how to or what to do to get Twitter going? And well, that's the number one question. Number two is the rest of the board going to listen, right? Because he is on the board now, but it's not like he became CEO and has complete authority over the company. So there's a lot of now iffy questions around it that would still be like, if you're jumping in now, those are the questions you have to wrestle with. You can't just sit back and say, well, Elon Musk is on board, I'm just going to jump right in, or like, oh, I missed a 27% vote, because now somebody who's a real big Musk fan could be saying, now it's worth investing in because, what he did with Twitter, what he did with Tesla was huge. It was a lot more than 27%. So there's a lot of, so going back to your point, there's a lot of difficulties in singular stock selection, and then you just have one guy come throw a monkey wrench on the whole thing, and you've got to reevaluate your entire position.
The value of diversification.
Exactly.
Value diversification, absolutely. So, I mean, that's interesting stuff.
That wraps it up.
Interesting stuff to see. And so, before we go, I know I have a couple announcements, because I know particular for some of our Latino bilingual viewers, Habitat for Humanity currently looking for bilingual candidates for a number of positions. Habitat para la Humanidad está buscando trabajos, personas bilingües para unas posiciones en Southwood. En particular, administrador de la propiedad, especialista en realojamiento, which is rehousing specialist, especialista en empoderamiento comunitario y financiero, so like community empowerment, financial empowerment specialist,
right.
Looking for, especialista en participación comunitaria, conector comunitario tiempo parcial, y director asociado de asociaciones comunitarias, which is associate director of community partnerships. So if you're interested, be sure to check out CVilleHabitat.org. So a number of positions, particularly for our bilingual Latino viewers that are interested in just being involved with Southwood and then the great projects that are going up there with Habitat for Humanity. Definitely a lot of opportunities upcoming there.
Right.
I just wanted to share that for our audience here. So this was a great show.
Oh, this was fun. Do you have the list of who we got on next week?
Oh, next week I do indeed. Next week we're going to be joined first by Iwa Har from Crozet Arts and Crafts Festival. So we got our art there, as well as Justin and Amanda from the Jim CVille coming back on the show. So it's going to be another fantastic show lined up for our audience next week. So looking forward to it. Xavier will be back next week. Some people will be upset by that. Some people will be overjoyed. But we say, always have to throw in a joke at my poor dad's expense.
Well, I was like, most people will probably be happy. Let's be at this point. We kept testing out the waters.
One week is enough niche for one week.
No, but we could always replace him with Michael. But I don't think. But for some reason, there's people that they keep calling Xavier affable and all this and. I don't see it, but as long as the audience loves it, we'll bring them back.
Xavier says, thank goodness.
Judah's laughing off the screen. I don't see it. What do you want? I don't see it, but...
What can we do? It was fun to have you on.
It was fun to have Dr. Caroline, Dr. Leanne, and Sam.
It was fantastic. Just love the passion, love the energy that they bring to what they do.
Love the opera, love the pizza. That's
absolutely.
What I always
so
say.
Be sure to check out Charlottesville Opera as well as the Philosopher Stone Pizza. And so thanks. Always love being on the set. Thanks for Judah behind the camera. He had his physical workout today too, lifting the camera to show this delicious pizza to our audience. Always appreciate being here. Always appreciate Emergent Financial Services for presenting us. Always appreciate our friends at Aqua Hand Car Wash, at Sirius Craddock Insurance, at Castle Hill Cider. Be sure to check them out, especially this spring with that brunch.
Yeah, they got a May
Sundays.
15th event. Make sure to leave that open.
May 15th event. The Jim CVille going to be joining us next week. Vitae Spirits, GBS Financial Services, and Ford Adelante. And always appreciate you, our audience, for just your comments, your questions. Thanks for reaching out. Thanks for watching the show today. Always love having it and always love your participation. And we will look forward to seeing you all next week with some more fantastic guests. But until that time, hasta mañana.